Welcome to Raise Nation Radio, the podcast for nonprofit movers, shakers, and change makers. We're here to fuel your passion with a daily dose of fundraising inspiration while keeping the conversations and connections from the annual Raise Conference alive all year long. Tune in for fresh perspectives, bold strategies, and the hottest trends lighting up the nonprofit world. Whether you're just starting out or a seasoned pro, buckle up. Each episode is packed with lively discussions, expert insights, and creative solutions to help you make an even bigger impact. Now get ready for another exciting episode. Please welcome your host from One Cause, Don Lego.
Hello, Raise Nation. I'm Steve Lausch. I'm so glad that you've joined us here. We have a great show ahead of us today. So if you're discovering Raise Nation Radio for the first time, listen, I'm glad you are here. And if you're one of the many fearless fundraisers who tune in regularly, you know that I am not Don Lego. I'm sitting in for my colleague and friend, Dawn. She's the real voice of Raise Nation Radio, but today you got me. So it's my pleasure to be here. Listen, we're going to have some fun, get comfy. Let's dive into this week's episode. My guest today is the one and only Mitch Stein, head of strategy at Chariot. Mitch, it is great to have you on the podcast. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah. And I got to say, folks, Mitch is everywhere. Mitch, you're a great follow on LinkedIn. I encourage our audience to check you out on LinkedIn. But in fact, you and I were last under the same roof when we were at the Raise Conference in San Antonio. There was a lot going on there, so we didn't get much more than a quick hello in. So I'm really glad that I get some extended time with you here today. So good to have you.
Yeah, me too. And I had a great time at the conference. Everyone should check it out next year.
Yeah, Raise is fantastic, but I'm not going to get distracted on Raise right now, but because I want to get to what you're going to tell us about. But listen, I want to start at the beginning. Okay. For those who may not yet be familiar, Mitch, I would love to have you tell our audience a little bit about Chariot, what Chariot does, how it started, what inspires you at your mission at Chariot.
Yeah, thank you so much. And hi, everybody. As Steve said, my name is Mitch Stein. I'm the head of strategy here at Chariot. I've been working with the company for coming up on 3 years, and we are just on a mission to accelerate philanthropy. Where we really have specialized is in donor-advised fund giving. DAFs are a tool that really help people organize and grow and intentionally manage their philanthropy, but historically were quite difficult to use in those more like inspiration-based giving moments. So you get the email from a friend, it's their birthday, it's a giving day, they're doing a bike ride, a crisis, there's a hurricane, you want to respond right away, right on their page, right on the form. And DAF giving was disconnected from that. So while it is exploding in terms of popularity and people opening accounts and funding those accounts, we also saw a gap in how people could use those DAFs in every instance they're inspired to give. And so we built a DAF payment option called DAFpay. If you've ever used Apple Pay or Google Pay, pretty self-explanatory. You're at checkout, you're ready to donate, and instead of using a credit card, you can go ahead and initiate your DAF gift right on a nonprofit's donation form. And that was the small, sounds simple idea, but there's a lot behind the scenes that goes along with it. And that was over 3 years ago when we launched it. And now we're working with tens of thousands of nonprofits, dozens of amazing fundraising platforms like One Cause to bring more easier DAF giving into every possible giving situation.
And I want to get to that experience that you started to talk through. But first, I want to go back to, you mentioned the word DAFs have really exploded. Why is that? Tell me a little bit about that, because I remember the first time I saw DAF in philanthropic literature, and I'm like, what is that? But that has really grown over the last couple of years. Why?
Yeah, I'll tell a little story about when I first learned about donor advised funds, because it was actually almost 10 years ago. I was working at Goldman Sachs, a large investment bank, and I had just signed up for my first fundraising experience, which was an event called Cycle for the Cause. It's a bike ride from Boston to New York City that helps fund the HIV and AIDS programming here in New York. I had an uncle that we lost to AIDS, and so my dad and I found this event and signed up together. And I sent out my first fundraising email ever, which for all the fundraisers on the line, you know, the like nerves you feel when you're asking people to give. And I got super exciting response, but I also had one of the partners that I worked for at Goldman who responded and said he was making a $10,000 gift from his donor advised fund. And I, first of all, called him and was like, was that a typo? Is that a mistake? I didn't realize people like made gifts that large.
That's
and
awesome.
then he also explained what a donor advised fund was, right? It's an account, a charitable savings account, charitable giving account, similar to a 401k or an HSA, but you can use this tax advantage account for your giving. So you fund the account with, cash, often like appreciated securities or other assets. That account is invested in the market and grows over time. And then you make grants out of it anytime you're inspired to give. And then I found out that every partner at Goldman had one of these accounts. This was in 2016. And so I started calling out on my emails like, hey, if you have a donor advised fund, here's the steps to follow.
Oh, wow.
And so that was a big boon for my fundraising. It was a lot of extra work for me and extra work for the people with those accounts. But I would just give that background to say in 2016, it was the partners at Goldman Sachs that had DAFs, right? And the biggest difference to today, when you talk about like, why is there this explosion in DAF giving? It's because it has become so much more democratized, right? So really any level of donor can find benefit in using a DAF. The main DAF providers, like the two largest ones, are Fidelity Charitable and Schwab Charitable, which is now known as DAF Giving 360. They both, in the past 10 years, have moved their account minimums and minimum gift sizes way down. So there's no minimum requirement to open an account. The minimum gift size is $50. And so all kinds of people can use and benefit from these structures. And so that's why we've seen now there's almost 2 million DAF accounts out there and millions of people using them. $250 billion in assets have been contributed to and set aside for giving within DAF accounts. And that the annual grant making is now about $55 billion as of the end of 2023. So it has become more accessible. People are more aware, and it is just taking off in terms of the amount of philanthropy out of DAFs.
So as much as we love that $10,000 gift with all those zeros that you weren't expecting, as you're saying, the DAF world is not just for the big donor anymore. And I would think that would turn the head of nonprofits everywhere. What you said earlier really intrigued me about what the donor, from the donor's experience, what they are greeted with when trying to make a DAF payment, if I can use that term, DAF payment. You're making it quite a bit easier. Can you walk our audience through what that looks like, at least at a high level? Is it a lot of jumping between sites? Is it a lot of looking things up? Or how does DAFpay make that easy? Yeah,
for sure. And it's certainly a term you can use. I think the formal language is typically like you're recommending a grant from your DAF. Perfect. So it's a technicality because in order to get that benefit when you contribute to your DAF account and get that tax write-off up front, you are technically like fully relinquishing, quote unquote, control of those funds. They are now owned by the DAF sponsor, the charitable entity that manages the DAF funds. So every time that you want to see a grant or a gift go out to a nonprofit, you're technically making a recommendation for all intents and purposes, as long as it's a valid organization, right, that they're able to pay and it's for an eligible use case, right? You're not trying to buy an auction item with your DAF. Those get approved and processed. But just some context on like what's actually happening behind the scenes. And so historically, we'll use my bike ride example again, right? So I've sent out an email. I'm asking for people to donate, and someone that has a donor advised fund opens my email, sees the campaign page, clicks to donate, and it says Apple Pay, Venmo, Google Pay, credit card, whatever, all these different giving options, nothing about a donor advised fund. And it's frustrating because you've set this money aside specifically for giving. It's like, it'd be like if you had a gift card to a specific store and then you got in there and they were like, no, we're not accepting gift cards. You know what I mean? Like that's the money you want to use first before you have to use your credit card or anything else. So if you are particularly motivated, you'd leave that page, you'd pull up your DAF account wherever you have one, you'd log in, then you need to find the organization. Now, for this example, the event's called Cycle for the Cause, but that's not the name of the nonprofit. And so if you type Cycle for the Cause, you're not going to find anything. So then you're going to go back and look up, okay, what's the actual organization behind it? And the common name is the LGBT Center, but that's still not actually their legal name. It's like something much longer. So if you search that name, you're still not going to find it. So you say, oh, actually, I need to find the EIN of the organization. So you're going to go back and try to look through their website and figure out their tax ID number so you can be sure you're giving to the right organization. So you finally land on the right one, and then you're going to answer, a bunch more questions in your account. And then they're going to get to like the notes field and you're like, oh, wait, but I want this to benefit Mitch. And then you're like, okay, but there's like thousands of people participating. But let me go back and try to find his writer number so that you can write the writer number down in the note field. I've been talking about this for probably 2 minutes now. We all know what people's attention span is. So
They don't want to do that.
Yeah. So, and that's, by the way, that's experience has been improved dramatically. Like a lot of these providers have invested a lot in their portals and experiences, but it's still just not connected in that specific kind of giving, what I like to call inspiration-based giving, which is so much of what you do and what people listening to this call rely upon for their fundraising. And so once you have a payment option specific to donor advised funds that's right there on the page, then you're able to say, oh yeah, DAF, I have that. I don't have to use my credit card. You click on it, opens that checkout window. You're not redirected anywhere. You're still on the same page, and you can complete your gift in 3 clicks and takes a few seconds. So that amount of friction is so important for this type of fundraising.
Yeah. And I want to point out to our audience that what you just said took, I think, 5 seconds versus the 2+ minutes to describe what it used to be like. So Chariot has really made that easy. What let me ask you, and this is a kind of what they call the softball throw, right? What sets Chariot apart? What sets DAFpay apart? Why should nonprofits who work with One Cause and other fundraising platforms that when they see, hey, oh, they got DAFpay by Chariot, why should that get them excited?
Yeah, I mean, we are the only provider of a DAF payment option. So it's a real step forward in nonprofit tech innovation. There are some other things out there that are like widgets for when you just redirect you to a DAF portal where you don't capture any information, they can't complete their gift, you don't know anything about the donor. So that's still better than nothing. But I would say what we've introduced with DAFpay is a real step change in terms of donor experience and the impacts on your fundraising. And I would say more broadly about Chariot, like this technology is super exciting and impactful for people, but we also really take the lead on education. I do a ton of podcasts and webinars like this one to make sure people are learning about DAFs, how to engage with them more, how to take advantage of this really fast growing segment of philanthropy. And we have tremendous resources on our site. We do original research every year through the DAF fundraising report. We host DAF Day and provide all kinds of assets and marketing toolkits for you to easily action and raise from people. So when it comes to DAF fundraising, we should really be your go-to, both on the technology side and all the learning and resources too.
It's fantastic. You heard it here, folks. So it would be great to check out what Chariot has to offer. But let's go back to some of the and you kind of peppered a number of value statements into your description of that experience. Let's look at it let's start with the donor's perspective. Let's start from the donor's perspective, and I eventually want to work to the nonprofit's perspective before we're done. And we can even think about this in the scope and sphere of the integration that One Cause has set up with Chariot for DAFpay in its online fundraising, the donation forms, giving sites, and so on. So I'm a donor and I want to give through my DAF. I come on to a One Cause giving site, or I am on a donation form of whatever sort online, and I see DAFpay. What again am I going to experience there that makes this worth it? Like, not to be afraid of it.
Yeah, and I love that you brought up the fear too, because I think anything different or change is always scary to people.
Yeah.
And so I'll just say, first of all, no one is forced to use this thing. And I think even if the donor doesn't end up clicking on it, you reminding them to use their DAF has a ton of value to you. So one of the pieces of research that we lead, the DAF fundraising report, where we analyze historical DAF giving for a large group of nonprofits and compare it to non-DAF giving at the same organizations, and compare for the same donor what their giving was like before they started using their DAF to support their organization. And just across the board, like DAF gifts, 26 times larger on average. when someone changes the way they give from non-DAF to DAF giving, it's a 10x increase.
Wow.
So just putting that in front of them in an intuitive way in your checkout experience. So at a baseline, you've reminded them, even if they don't end up using it, you've already done a service to your organization. 2, they do end up using it. That means they were able to make the fastest DAF gift of their life and in a way that they historically weren't even able to. And so you've offered them that experience. The other thing we do within DAFpay is if someone's going through the form and they put $100 and they go to checkout and they're like, wait, I don't have to use my credit card. I can use my DAF. They then are prompted within the DAFpay checkout to say, hey, do you want to increase that? Give them some easy increase options, $100, $200, because they're going to be seeing their full balance in their DAF account at the top of that page. And so, by the way, the average DAF account balance is over $140,000. So that donor now saying, oh, wait, well, now that I can use the gift card, right, from earlier, I always call it my fun money, my giving fun money. I'm way less budget conscious. I'm like, oh, wait, I can give some more. I'll bump that up to $500 or $1,000.
I love that.
So you're driving that donor to make a larger gift. And then the last piece I'll just say is the majority, as we've analyzed this for different clients, the majority of people using DAFpay are not going to be your existing DAF donors. Everyone always wants to know, how do I find more DAF donors? Where are these mythical DAF donors hiding? You have them. People, they're already in your audience. There are a host of reasons that people just don't end up using their DAF for whatever reason. And so giving them that intuitive way to do so right on your forms means that actually the majority of people that use DAFpay are net new donors or first-time DAF donors to your organization, which results in big increases in their giving. So I just think all that answers the question that I get a lot, which is like, we already get DAF gifts, so why would I need this? It's going to bring you new DAF donors, get you better information in real time, and larger gifts.
Love that. And I love the picture that you painted for me because it was very vibrant in my mind. When I go to an event, I have X number to Y number range that I will probably give, because that's my North Star for going to that event. But the North Star becomes my total DAF account amount. When I move into the DAF world and I see my total, it's already earmarked for charity. It's already there for giving, right? And so I can see why people give more. I can see why those average gifts are bigger. Okay, let's bring this home from the nonprofit standpoint. Let's say Steve has been to the event. He gives through his DAF. Now what? What's the value of what a nonprofit that is using a platform like One Cause integrated with Chariot, what do they see? What do they get to then have available to them to nurture that relationship, grow that DAF giving over time, or whatever else? I'm sure you have other value that you can help share with the audience.
Yes. I mean, obviously everything we covered that benefits the donor benefits the charity. So you can start there, right? That better donor experience, they have a better association with your organization. So that's all positive. The larger gifts, great. But I think the biggest unlock that we hear over and over again is the fact that you capture that donor's name and email immediately. Taking a step back, Steve, we talked a lot about the donor experience not using DAFpay, but it's also worth reiterating the nonprofit experience when someone makes a DAF gift just for whatever reason directly into their portal. You have no idea when that happens. So that could happen today and you might not know about it for a month, because it depends on when that check ultimately gets cut and sent and arrives to you and your team processes it and enters it into your system. So that very commonly takes several weeks depending on the DAF provider. And then it almost never comes with an email. So your contact information for the donor, if you have it, is their mailing address, which means you then need to print a letter, stuff it, send it. I just last week opened a thank you letter for a DAF gift I sent on October 10th, 2024. That just arrived to me last week.
No.
So yes. So like the challenge in stewarding these donors is huge. And it's the number one complaint that I hear from DAF donors who are like, this account is awesome. I've streamlined my giving. I feel so much more engaged and intentional. But some people even describe the experience once they're using it as lonely, which is like kind of shocking to hear, but they're inspired by something your organization did or sent them, right? Or that a fundraiser did. So they're all excited. They've got the warm fuzzies, like, I'm ready to donate and support. They leave your website and they go log into their bank account. It's like immediately dispels your warm fuzzies, your those extra steps, whatever, you send it. And then it's like,
That's awful.
that's it, right? And it's just
Like, that's a terrible experience. I can see why you have jumped in and changed the world in that regard.
Yes, because if you are able to make sure someone on your team gets that notification from Chariot or, within the One Cause portal to see, oh, they made a gift. Let's have our director of development, our head of plan giving, like someone that can send a personal note, because someone using their DAF is like the best indicator of their wealth potential. And like better than any wealth screen that you can run, because it tells you their level of engagement with giving and their sophistication around giving, and that it's extremely likely that even if it was a few $100s through their DAF, that there's a lot more where that came from. So that they're a priority donor. You can thank them immediately in a way that they've never been thanked for their DAF gifts before. It's really transformative. We had a client who did a little test for the first few months when they had DAFpay live, where their head of plan giving sent a personal thank you to everyone who used DAFpay. And 50% of them responded to her thank you, like thanked her for the thank you, which is like unheard of, right? In fundraising, those response rates are probably in the single digits percentage wise, to say like, oh my God, it's so nice to hear from you. I've never been thanked for a DAF gift before. Like, that's the type of transformation that you can see.
So the donor actually has come to expect silence.
Yeah, or very long delays.
Very long delays. Yeah. I mean, if I were new to it, let's say I roll into my first grant request or grant, what was your term exactly?
Recommendation, yeah, but
grant
DAF
recommendation
gift is fine.
Yes. Okay. I and our audience need to nail that down. Grant recommendation. So I'm rolling into that for the first time. I'm excited. I'm trying something new. Obviously, there are benefits all the way around. But if I don't hear anything forget the 10 months, a month, if I don't hear anything for a month and let's say I'm your uncle and I gave you that $10,000. Yeah, wow. That's tough. So what you're doing at Chariot is awesome. I mean, I knew that before we signed on to the podcast today, but this is fantastic. I'm going to put you on the spot. Tell me what's coming next. What's on the future? Okay. We look back 6 years and, you said 2016, 9 years. We look back 9 years. We see the excitement of how it's built today. Where are we going from here?
Yeah. I'll start by saying something we did introduce this year, which will tie into, I think, where we're going, is that Chariot, because the problem that you just talked about, the like weeks gap in delivery, it's because this is also really hard for the donor advised funds. Like, how do you manage and send the funds efficiently and securely to the recipient organizations? There's 1.5 million, give or take, eligible nonprofits that you could be expected to send a grant payment to at any point in time. So we know that's a big challenge in contributing to the delays and data gaps. So we launched a whole solution for the DAF providers or other sort of payers to nonprofits to be able to send those disbursements through the Chariot platform. So something called Chariot disbursements. And that's why for any nonprofit who claims their Chariot account today, they also now have a deposit account as a part of their Chariot account on the platform, where they can receive funds and the data associated with those gifts from participating DAFs at the same time. And their whole team has a central source of truth. The data is structured in a predictable way. They can easily sync it to their other systems. And I would say the future iteration of that we're spending more and more time on is now how those gifts are received. So we're helping any of those participating DAF providers to handle how they send payments more. What are ways that, regardless of where they're getting the gifts from, nonprofits can streamline how they process those gifts, right? It's a function called gift processing, which we've just found is sort of the unsung hero of many nonprofit fundraising teams, especially as, I'll call them like offline or third party, kind of like intermediated ways of donating are on the rise. Those things that come through the mail, your DAF gifts, like employee giving, QCDs, like what are ways that all of that can be streamlined and made more efficient for your team as those methods of giving become more and more popular? So I'd say that's definitely coming up soon. Some really innovative solutions there to help people with gift processing too.
And that is exciting. So we are not at the last chapter of this book. This is just getting started. I think that's about all we have for today, Mitch. But listen, I want to make sure you come back at some point and we pick up what that next chapter looks like. But again, Mitch, thank you. Huge thanks to you for joining us today.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, Steve.
Yeah, thank you. For all of you who tuned in, I want to leave you with this. Your mission matters. And if your experiences can make it onto Raise Nation Radio, they are what make Raise Nation what it is. So we'd love to hear from you. Subscribe, like, comment, share, and let's continue building this incredible community together. Until then, we'll see you next time, and stay fearless.
Fearless Fundraisers, that's a wrap for today. A heartfelt thank you to our guests for sharing their stories, insights, and expertise. And to you, our fantastic audience, for everything you do to build brighter tomorrows in our communities. We hope today's content inspires you to amplify your mission and grow your impact. Don't forget to join us for new episodes every Thursday, wherever you listen to your podcasts, or catch us on YouTube and on demand at onecause.com. And before we go, we'd love your help in growing this podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, please like, follow, and subscribe to Raise Nation Radio. Share it with a friend, and please leave us a review so we can continue delivering content that inspires and empowers. Raise Nation Radio is produced in partnership with One Cause, your go-to for digital fundraising solutions that connect nonprofits with their donors and drive results. Visit onecause.com or scan the QR code to schedule a one-to-one with their fundraising experts and explore the latest tools and innovations to help you reach more and raise more. Plus, be sure to check out their extensive catalog of free resources to support your mission. All the links are in the show notes. Raise Nation Radio is inspired by the annual Raise Conference, presented by One Cause. We'd love to see you in person at the next Raise event in September. It's a 2-day experience featuring over 35 CFRE-accredited sessions, dynamic speakers, and the latest innovations from our sponsor pavilion, and priceless networking opportunities. And while you're there, don't miss the Fearless Fundraiser Party. It's where memories are made and lifelong friendships are formed. Secure your spot today at onecause.com/raise. The link is also in the show notes. Until next time, thank you for tuning in, and as always, stay fearless.